I'm Audrey Sears with the American Sidesaddle Association, specifically the Western New York Sidesaddle Chapter, and this is Gail Orr, the president of the Western New York Sidesaddle Chapter, and we're here today to talk to you guys about your first ever clinic and what you might expect. Gail had an experience at a first clinic, and she'd like to share that with you.
Yeah, so my first clinic that I went to was about 3 years ago, and I just had a number of things that happened that I just didn't understand what was going on. And I discovered that there's a lot of people that have basically had similar experiences to me. So I thought maybe if I just shared a couple things, it would help you understand what you might be facing. So the very first clinic that I came to, the clinician set up all of these saddles. I mean, she probably brought in 12 to 15 different saddles, and most of them were fairly old saddles. Even go back to the late 1800s. And I remember thinking to myself, why are we using all of this really old tack? And I just simply didn't understand that the older saddles are some of the nicest saddles to ride in. They were built to last. I mean, we're riding in saddles that are antiques essentially, but the saddles, they have been looked over and made safe for riding. Billets have been replaced over time and things like that. So I was really surprised because I wasn't expecting that in my first clinic. The other thing that happened, and I don't know if you experienced this, Audrey, is the clinician pulled out a stack of towels. And I was like, what are all these towels about? These hand towels are pieces of material that could be folded in a certain way. And basically when the clinician comes to your clinic, they're going to look to fit the saddle to your horse. So they're going to do the best job that they can to find the right saddle to fit your horse. And so when they do that, it might be that the saddle isn't exactly a perfect fit. And it's a little bit different than maybe riding in an English saddle or even a Western saddle, that you need that side saddle to be as custom a fit as you possibly can get. And so for a temporary situation where it's just one day where you're just riding for a couple of hours, towels are used to shim the saddle so that the saddle doesn't rock or move. And so I was kind of surprised by that because I was like, why are we stuffing all these towels everywhere? And that's really what it's about. Now, if you were to buy a saddle, Audrey, you just bought a saddle recently.
Yep, right back there.
Right? I don't know if you can catch the saddle in. Tell us a little bit about this saddle.
So this is a 1800s type saddle. And I have to have it reflocked to fit my horse. At the moment, you can see that the padding is there's no compression and there's very low of it. In fact, there's almost no gullet. So in order for it to fit my horse, the tree itself fits, but in order to make it comfortable, I'm going to have to add some extra padding and take out some from a lower section in order to actually make it fit my horse perfectly.
So I think what I hear you saying, Audrey, is that, when you rode in the saddle recently at a clinic, right, it was shimmed to fit you for the day.
It had to be shimmed for that day. We had to put quite a bit of bar towels and things in the back end to keep that up off the horse's back, because this saddle was not made for that horse. It was made at the time for that person and horse that ordered it, not for me now in the 2000s.
Right. So long term then, once you purchase your side saddle, you would then get it custom fit to your horse through flocking.
Yep.
So putting towels under a saddle is just a temporary thing to make sure that the saddle fits your horse for that day. And longer term, if you find that you buy a saddle at a clinic and the saddle fits your horse, but maybe there's a few towels stuffed here or there, you would then get it flocked for your horse. So the other thing that kind of struck me as odd in my very first clinic is that I saw that there was vet wrap on the upper horn of the saddle. And I'm like, why is this saddle vet wrapped? Or I saw duct tape, wrapped around this horn. And I didn't understand that. It's not that the saddle was taped together, it's that we actually shim the human as well. So not only do we shim the saddle to fit the horse, we actually shim the human to fit the saddle. Most saddles, at the time they were made for the woman who rode in that saddle. They were custom fit to both the horse and the rider. So today, when we ride in an older saddle, we might actually have to shim it a little bit to fit ourselves. Longer term, you can actually have what's called a queen, which is basically what this is. It's just extra padding on the upper horn. custom made to your saddle so that it has the look and appearance that you might want. Although most of your upper horns are hidden under your side saddle apron or skirt anyway, and you don't even see it. So a normal agenda at a side saddle clinic looks just simply like this. You arrive at the clinic, maybe you've rented a stall, maybe you have a spot where you're tying your horse. The morning consists of saddle fitting, and if there's a dozen people at the clinic, that's 12 horses that have to be fit. And then after that, usually there's a break for lunch, and there's a really great conversation around side saddle history. And then the afternoon is where you spend most of your day really riding. And so Audrey, do you want to share a little bit about your first experience when you came to your first clinic and what that saddle fitting process looked like for you?
Yeah. So when I first came to my first clinic, there was a very long portion of saddle fit in the very beginning. And that was something that I wasn't necessarily used to, but it was something that me in my career, I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand it. Because for a side saddle, there is an extreme learning curve on saddle fit. It's not just like you can pull out any old saddle and jump on your horse and expect it to ride well. It really has to fit your horse in order to keep you safe and your horse's well-being safe. And that was something that was a little different for me that I wasn't aware of at the beginning.
So Audrey, do you think like if you came back to another clinic and the clinician was, engaged in saddle fitting and you're standing there with your horse, I mean, do you think that you could maybe take that moment to like go tie up your horse so you can be more engaged? Like, how do you think that might look like?
I think it's really dependent on your clinician. Some clinics may want you to hold your horse, but other clinics might allow you to go put your horse back on your trailer or in a stall or tie him up in a safe area, something like that. But honestly, if you're going to be at a clinic, take time to listen and learn for that initial saddle fit.
I know that we had one clinic here last fall, and we actually changed it out a little bit from a previous clinic where we actually asked the riders to try to fit their horse themselves with the saddles that were present, just to give people a little bit more of that hands-on and like how to do it. But you're right, it is a bit of an art. It does take some practice to learn how to do it, and it's really worthwhile to come to a clinic and learn how that happens.
Yeah.
All right, so this is my horse Bunny. She's a standard bred. She's 17 hands high. Audrey grabbed her saddle that she's lovingly named
Virginia.
Most ladies do kind of nickname their saddle.
Right,
so we're going to try this one on. This is a narrow tree. Bunny's pretty high withered. Yep, she's a tall girl.
She's taller than me by a lot.
So we're going to just check this out here. Geez, that's not bad on my side. So one of the first things that I like to check is, you saw I went onto the off side of the saddle because it's actually easier to see where the saddle is placed on her back because of the skirt. It's just easier to see that it's sitting on her back in the right spot. So some of the things I check for is, how does this feel? Is she getting any pinching at all in here where the tree sits on her back? Audrey's feeling underneath her back. She's basically seeing if there's any gaps in there that we need to accommodate.
But it's not pinching.
It's not pinching, okay. The other thing that I like to do is I actually like to grab the upper horn and I kind of just rock the saddle a little bit back and forth. And what I'm feeling for is this saddle really sitting on her back or is it teetering on her back?
Is it hugging her?
Yes, exactly.
Does it want to stay on the horse or does it want to jump off?
Exactly. I also like to take a quick peek from behind. I like to see, is the saddle tipping? Is it level? What does that look like? I kind of like to look at it from the front as well. What do you think, Audrey?
It needs to come up and back.
Yep, just a little bit. So
but she doesn't have the bridging over here like she does the other one, the other side. Just kind of nice.
Okay. So we would just grab some cloth or some towels and we would shove it in there and basically fill in the gaps that are there. Now, if the saddle is listing to one side, we would actually put a shim on this side of her back. We'd actually put it here That way the saddle won't list that way when the rider's on their back. And that is a really important trick, especially if you find that your saddle tends to tip a little bit that way. Now, the other place I look to see if the saddle's flat is here. Is the saddle level this way? Is the seat,
You want to be right there.
Is the seat good this way? You know, if your saddle's got a huge downhill build, it could be that it's too narrow in the front. If the saddle is tipping downward and it's higher in the front, it's too wide here. So you really want to make sure that your saddle is as flat as possible. From behind, contrary to what you might think, you actually want the saddle to be tilted a little bit so that the leaping horn is up. And because when you actually sit on the saddle, then it'll ride a little bit more level. So you actually want the back of the saddle to just be tipped very slightly.
So the other thing that you should know as a first-time what do you call it? A clinic? I don't know.
A clinic participant.
Yeah, a clinic participant.
Somebody who goes to the clinic is that you need to make sure that your horse stands to be tacked and untacked, because it very rarely is the first saddle that goes on the horse. It could be the second, the third, all the way down to the fifth, eighth. You know, it can keep going. And especially, you may not be in the facility you're at, you may not have access to a good set of cross ties or a nice hitching rail. You might be having to actually hold the horse there. So you need to make sure that your horse is safe to be tacked up and untacked.
Okay, so Audrey just brought another saddle over. This one she's lovingly named Bonnie. This is a reinforced saddle. It's from the early 1900s.
Yep.
Would have been used
Fox hunting.
Yep.
This is a champion in Wilton.
Very nice. Okay, so what have we found here? What kind of tree width do we have? Let's get the horse standing up straight here. Come on, buddy, you gotta wake up. Let me go push her a little bit on the other side. Have her stand towards you. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, we just want her to stand up a little bit so we can check everything out. Geez, you know, Audrey, this isn't that bad in the front at least.
Yeah, I was going to say the long point's kind of pinchy right here at the very base.
Okay.
So with an English type saddle like this, it's going to have a long point on one side and a short point on the other.
Yep, I do feel
and
that.
And it's a little pinchy right here at the bottom.
And you can actually see the horse actually reacted a little bit when I put my hand in there. She just kind of like, what's going on right there? So this saddle doesn't actually fit as well as the last saddle.
I'm going to go to the short point and I'm going to push, see if it comes off.
Here, let's see.
Does it come off, Nikio?
What's that?
Does the long point come off of the horse?
No.
No. Okay. So yeah, this saddle's too small.
All right.
Too tight.
So we'll swap that one out and let's try the crest ridge. Now I already know the crest ridge is too wide for her, but my horse has put on about 150 pounds since I got her last October. So her top line has changed considerably. She's still gaining weight. But you know, I haven't put this crest ridge on her since last November. So we'll give it a quick shot and see what we have here. Buddy, step over. I just want her to square up a little bit. Okay, we'll help you. These crest ridges are heavy. Yes,
compared to mine.
Very much like a, you know. So the crest ridge saddles, I absolutely love them. I mean, in terms of seat security, I feel like you just can't beat them. They are a bit of a cross saddle or a hybrid. They're on a Western tree. This is technically an English saddle on a Western tree. So the tree does, I feel like the trees are a little bit more flexible and that they fit a lot more horses. This saddle actually does fit her better than it did this past spring, but you can see there's a lot of movement. It rocks. You know, it doesn't really fit her. It's not safe to ride in a saddle like this. Because the saddle could literally just slide right off the side when you're riding her. I did shim the snot out of it just to get me through one day, and I haven't ridden her in it since just because I don't want to hurt my horse. But I wanted the opportunity to see how she would go aside, and she actually did really well. It was her first time. So you can see, you know, that the saddle, you know, it's really tipped heavily to this side. It's rocking. It doesn't, there's a lot of gaping kind of in here. It's just a poorly fitting saddle, unfortunately. But okay, so this saddle is my Whitman from the Roosevelt era. The saddle does not fit this horse at all. You can see how severely it's rocking. We haven't even really done anything yet. I've never tried this saddle on her, so it's kind of fun to just try it on and see what we get. This saddle, I have found it fits my Arabian the best, just because the way her back is shaped, it really fits my Arabian. I had no thoughts whatsoever that this saddle would actually fit, but we thought we'd give it a try because we are talking about saddle fitting. Please ignore that I have the stirrup draped right here. I would not ride with my stirrup draped like this. It would be in the bar that's where the stirrup leather actually goes. I just had it here for when I was cleaning my tack. I pulled this all apart. So Audrey, what do you want to include in this sort of saddle fitting exercise here?
It doesn't fit, and then the only reason why I'm not over there is I'm worried it's going to hit the ground. I'm holding it.
Yeah, and it's got a very narrow gullet as well, and so it's very limited in what horses it actually can fit. But like I said, it works fairly well for my Arabian, and it definitely works well for schooling people and educating people on different types of saddles. So I hope you enjoyed our video today on what to expect in your first clinic. And yes, you will have lots of saddles tried on your horses. Some of them are going to be terrible fitting. Some of them are going to be really great. Sometimes the saddle you think you're going to ride in that fits okay, maybe fits another horse a little bit better. So then your saddle gets swapped out, and that's just part of what happens in the morning. But what's great about going through that process is how much you learn about what to look for when you do go to fit your horse. And I hope you'll also watch our back tracing video so that when you're ready to make a purchase, that you know that you're getting something that's going to work for your horse. Have a great day.